All right, time to go teach. Hello and welcome to this episode of Tutors, where we are continuing our unit on evolution. And in the past few episodes, we've talked about the different things that can cause change in the allele frequency in a species, things that can cause evolution. Today, we're going to be looking at types of change that can occur in population over time. Targets for the day, first off, is we are going to define what a niche is. You might have heard of this before. This is a very important term in biology, and specifically really important when we're looking at how or why some organisms will change. Then we are going to describe different types of evolution, different ways in which these different organisms can change. And then we are going to be looking at evidences for some of these types of change and how we can see that evolution has occurred. Well, let's get started. First off, vocab, a niche. What is it? Basically, an organism's role in its specific environment. And what's important about a niche is that you're not going to have two different organisms within the same ecosystem occupying the same exact niche, because that would cause too much competition between those organisms. They would be competing for the exact same resources, and over time, one organism would outcompete the other organism. And the population that is most fit for that environment is the one that will survive, and the other population will die out. This leads to different types of evolution then. Over time, if we have our ancestral species, we can have what's called divergent evolution. And divergent evolution means that we have our ancestral species population diverge. Over time, the species branches out, getting more different, so that now we can have a group occupying one niche and another group occupying a different niche. This reduces competition between these different populations, which is going to increase their chances of survival. We also have convergent evolution, but convergent evolution is from two different ancestral species. Over time, they get more similar, changing to occupy a very similar niche. And we also have what's called coevolution, which would also have multiple ancestral species which are going to evolve in response to each other. Each population is going to impact the other population's evolution. And we'll look at how that works out in a couple minutes. First, we're going to look at an example of divergent evolution, where populations have experienced change. Most classic example of this is the Galapagos Islands, where Darwin's finches diverged to occupy different niches, specifically in this case of eating different food sources, starting from one ancestral species to form different species that occupied different niches. In convergent evolution, another classic example is the flying squirrel in North America and the sugar glider in Australia. The flying squirrel is a placental mammal, whereas the sugar glider is a marsupial. They had a completely different evolutionary pathway, but they have converged to occupy a very similar niche, which is okay because they are in completely different geographical areas, and that means that they are not going to compete with each other. In coevolution, we can look at that in the ways that flowers have developed specific traits that attract bees or hummingbirds to them. The flowers that are more attractive to a hummingbird or more attractive to a bee are going to be able to reproduce. The flowers that are not as attractive to those organisms are not going to reproduce. This results in the hummingbird and the bee choosing which traits are favorable in the flowers and which ones will be passed on to the next generation. But the flower is also going to have an impact on what traits are favorable for the bees and for the hummingbirds. The bees and the hummingbirds that are able to get the food from those flowers effectively are going to survive better than the bees or hummingbirds that are not able to get that food effectively, which means that the flower also has an impact upon what traits are favored in the bees and the hummingbirds. This can also be seen in predator and prey relationships. Specifically here we have the cheetah and the Thompson's gazelle. The Thompson's gazelle is a fast and elusive herbivore. The cheetah is an extremely fast predator. Only the fastest and most elusive of the Thompson's gazelles could evade getting eaten by the cheetahs, which meant that those fast Thompson's gazelles were able to have offspring, which would also have been fast because of their parents' genes. This would result in only fast cheetahs being able to catch Thompson's gazelles and having food, and thus being able to survive and reproduce, resulting in fast offspring because their parents had genes that allowed them to be fast, causing directional selection so that the fastest of those organisms are the ones that are reproducing. How one population changes is going to impact how the other population changes. And through these different changes, we can see some evidence of this over time. We can see some evidence of these different changes in the structures that organisms still have today. Those are going to be seen as vestigial structures, homologous structures, and analogous structures. So let's start with our intraspecific structures, which are going to be vestigial structures. Vestigial structures are an anatomical or behavioral characteristic that no longer seems to have a functional sense. A great example of this would be organisms that live within caves. Many cave fish, many cave amphibians have all lost the ability to see. Their eyes are no longer functional, but they still have eye sockets, which would be where their eyes would go. The eye socket is a vestigial structure. It would have served a purpose at some time, but now that these organisms are living in a cave with no light, having an eye has no purpose. Being blind is not a disadvantage, but they still have a structure which points to the fact that their ancestor probably had functioning eyes. Now, all they're left with is non-functioning eye sockets. Analogous structures, those are features that perform the same function, but they have a completely different structure. This could be for organisms that are going to occupy a similar niche, but through a very different evolutionary pathway. A great example of this would be wings of a bird and wings of a dragonfly. Completely different in the way that they are structured. They are put together in a very different way, but they both serve the exact same function, which is to allow that organism to take flight. We could also look at legs of an insect compared to the legs of a mammal. Our legs are very different from the segmented legs of an insect, but they both allow us to walk. Those are analogous structures. They show a different evolutionary pathway. On the other hand, homologous structures, those are anatomical features that share the same structure or a similar structure, but a completely different function. Specifically, we could look at the forelimb of mammals. Is a single bone attached to two bones, which is then attached to many small little bones, and then the rest of our hand. This structure is repeated in bat wings, in the forelimbs of cats, in the legs of horses, and in the fins of whales. It's an extremely similar structure between all of these different organisms. They follow a very similar bone structure, But the function of our forelimbs are very different. We do not use our forelimbs to fly, nor do we use our forelimbs to glide us through the water. We use them to grasp things. We do not use our forelimbs for the exact same functions as these other organisms, but the structure is extremely similar, which does point to a similar evolutionary pathway. So in summary, all organisms, they are going to fulfill a specific role in their environment, and that is their niche. That role that they serve is extremely important. If we were to remove them, that could be extremely detrimental to that ecosystem. Each organism serving a specific purpose. And two organisms are not going to occupy the exact same niche within an ecosystem because that would cause too much competition between those different populations. And there are different paths that populations can take as they change. They can either undergo divergent evolution, where you have a single ancestral species which is going to get more different, which could cause homologous structures, or we could have different ancestral species getting more similar over time, which is convergent evolution, which could be a cause for analogous structures, or we could have organisms impacting the evolution of another organism, which would be coevolution. And the results of each of these different types of change can be observed in populations. And that's it for this time. Until next time, be awesome, stay awesome.